Welcome to the NBA Coast to Coast podcast brought to you by thelines.com. Coming to you from the West Coast, Josh Lander, joined by Nate Weitzer. He's on the East Coast. We're looking at 11 games in the NBA here on Monday for you guys. We are coming off a pretty weird weekend in the NBA, but we've got plenty to choose from here. Best bets in this video. Also have a play a props video up for you as well that we're bringing you each and every weekday. So subscribe to that page and continue to follow along with us throughout this NBA season and postseason. Also head to thelines.com. Use everything we're putting up on the site right now to help you out with these bets, including that player props tool to make sure that you're getting the best odds and juice available to you from all of these bets that you're making in the NBA this season. Nate, let's go ahead and get into your first best bet, a bet I fully agree with, a fun game with the Clips and the Pacers.
Yeah, the Clips have gone from an auto fade to a team we want to back pretty quickly here. Ty Lue said, give me a few games to turn this thing around, and he has. So I will take them -3 at Indy. Certainly, if you jump on this now and Tyrese Halliburton misses a second straight game, you will feel great. The the Pacers are 7-20 without Halliburton since the start of January. They just lost without him against Mini on Saturday. I think the Clippers can win this game with or without him.
Yeah.
Halliburton, not great numbers against Ty Lue in his career, 15 points, 8 assists. You give them the spike when he was on Indy with the higher usage, 19.5, 10 assists, still a -6 while he was out there. They were able to steal a high-scoring game at home against LAC, but since then they have just not been on par with the Western Conference. I guess if you want to look at that gap there, they lost 8 of their last 9 against the West last year. They've lost both. They lost to Portland at home before losing this game to Mini. So their only wins against the West against Utah and San Antonio so far. But this is more about just what LAC can do to limit them, right? Slow the pace down, play more in the half court with Harden like they have been doing. And limit fast break points, limit threes. They're 4th in opponent shooting efficiency, 5th in points overall. They've allowed 13 threes or fewer in 13 straight games against not the Warriors, which we bring up all the time, and that random spike game against Portland showing up again in this topic. But basically the point is the Clippers they buy into the game plan. Ty Lue always has a good idea of how to slow down the other team. Indy has kind of really, deflated after this in-season tournament run. Obviously, 3 straight losses with only a 112 offensive rating. Got crushed by Milwaukee, the number 1 team in true shooting in the last 7 games. And LAC is number 2. They're killing it on offense, which I didn't even mention. And they should have a huge advantage in terms of free throw rate over Indy, which fouls a ton. But defensively is where you lean on this, which is why I'd consider the Clippers money line with the under. Maybe only a quarter unit. You get 2-1 though. But if Halliburton doesn't play, you probably like the under more. Pacers are not really scoring much outside of him. And then just all the defensive metrics are really impressive for the Clips, especially the fact that they have allowed the fewest points off turnovers in their last 5 road games. That's why they've gone 4-1 in those, and that's where Indy is going to try to score a lot of points.
Yeah, I looked at this too, and I agree with it fully because I think it's a good spot. Look, Indy's awesome. They're an awesome story. I do think there's something to going balls to the wall for the IST that we might look back on. Not saying it's going to impact the entirety of their season, but I do think that right now there's a little bit of okay, we showed all our cards because we played like a playoff game, like we were in the playoffs for a while, and Tyrese was just who we relied upon entirely, and I don't think you can bank on that for the entirety of a season. He's an awesome player, but we were all like, wow, he's got 15 assists and 0 turnovers in 3 games this season, never been done. It's all very impressive. It's just a slightly different context, and this is now just like the sloggy, grinded out context. And apparently the Clippers are here for that. I never would have been like, oh, it's a sloggy, weird game in December. Let's pick the Clippers. But they seem to give a shit. So I'm going to go ahead and run with it. And one of the ways they do is because they keep playing guys on backs-to-backs. There's very clear indicators that they're taking the regular season somewhat seriously. And so we should take them seriously.
Yeah, Paul George, he only missed 1 game, 2 games, and then he's back and drops 25 against the Knicks, plays a full slate. These guys are not missing games. Kawhi hasn't missed any.
Yeah, Kawhi gives a shit, man. I think we can finally bank on that, and I'm so happy to be able to do that because there's so many good players on this team. So yeah, I think they're gonna outmatch the Pacers in this one. I'm going to go to a game I actually think is going to be a pretty good game between the Sixers and the Bulls, to be honest with you. I do think the Bulls will hang a little bit more than the teams that we've been seeing, but I'm going to target DeMar DeRozan and go under 5.5 assists. And I'm doing that with half a unit because I like the plus money that I still get for it. I think FanDuel now, you're still at about 108, but DraftKings had opened at plus 115 for him to go under 5.5 assists. And the reason that you might think it's not a good bet is LaVine is out, and he's definitely gone up in his average over the last 10 or so without LaVine in terms of the assists per game. But that's because he had like 2 big spike games of 10 assists in there, and that got him to averaging about 6.5 assists per game without LaVine. But in reality, he's gone under more than he's gone over this number without LaVine. It'll probably jump in some places so that you do get it at since the over is so juiced down, it probably will jump to 6.5 on some books. And I don't really, I'd like it the under there as well, even if you have to eat the juice. But I'm going to take the plus money with a half a unit, and like I said, buy back in for a half a unit if it goes up to 6.5, and take under that as well. But more importantly, 3.3 assists in his last 4 versus the Sixers, and at times they've been bad defending assists and allowing teams to sort of get them off balance. Not the case in the last 2 weeks, especially as they've been one of the best 5 teams easily in the NBA in the last couple of weeks. They've played some cupcakes, let's be very clear. But at the same time, they've also played a couple good teams in limited assists. So most importantly, he's gone under in 3 of 4, like I was mentioning, against this team back to last year because they haven't played yet. He only averaged about 8 potential assists per game, and that included 2 games without LaVine against the 76ers. So we have a decent sample size with this particular context. Chicago is scoring the most points per game off of the mid-range, unsurprisingly, when you have DeMar DeRozan, mid-range king. And that is also where you beat the Philadelphia 76ers from on the floor. That's a big part of why I was like, let me look at these DeMar assists. I understand that he's going to have the ball, but he's not going to have space, really, when he's where he's trying to work, which is at the extended foul line. He's not really working above the three-point line very much. And when you work inside the foul line or around the foul line, you don't have much room to go forward and pass around the rim with Joel Embiid standing there, who has the number 3 rated defensive rating, and specifically against shots within 5 feet around the rim. He's got the 3rd lowest opponent field goal percentage when they're going up against him inside the paint. So that's not where you score from against the 76ers team. Obviously, you need to score from the mid-range. That's why I think the shots and the usage continue to be there for DeMar against this team rather than him looking for any kind of assist, especially because I don't expect Vucevic to be doing any of his damage from scoring, like, because the offense is running through him in any way, right? It's for him, it's been a lot of getting rebounds actually against this team, which is kind of scary and weird, but he's gotten pretty good boards against the 76ers. So I do think there's something to like this not being a very high assist game. Now, I also want to note that I realize that the Bulls have gotten better at assists since Kobe White came in the lineup, but he's also the one averaging nearly 6 assists a game, as opposed to DeMar, who's still down around 3.5 assists per game over the last 3 weeks or so. So like there's a point guard in there, and I also really want Caruso to start, by the way, because if Caruso plays, I really do like like he's a bit more of the point guard. I understand that at the same time, DeMar leads the offense, he runs the offense, that's all fine and dandy, but you have another good passer and swingman out there in Caruso, and that takes away the ability for one guy to just take the focus of the offense, dribble. There's no real pick and roll game for him and Vooch or anything like that. At best, it's like a pick and pop from at times. So there's nothing here that really scares me about the assists the way that the 76ers have been limiting them in their top 10 in that in the last 8 games.
Yeah, and that's probably a good indication that they don't double guys too much. I feel like a lot of DeRozan's assists have got to be when he forces help. Like he's not a natural point guard,
Yeah.
like you're saying. He's not going to like run a pick and roll, spray it out to the wing. It's if he catches and goes and the defense gets sucked in. But the Sixers have been good with individual defense. Like Tobias Harris can just stick on him, and like you said, they have Kobe White now to initiate that. I mean, we've been targeting DeRozan unders since he blew up against Milwaukee in 3 straight. He has not been getting this assist number despite playing a ton of minutes against Miami in these back-to-back games. And I do think this could be a blowout.
Really?
I mean, Philly is not messing around with the lower tier Eastern Conference teams. It just depends if we see the old Chicago, which was totally lower tier, or this new version that's a bit spunky, whether we get the blowout or not. So either way, lots of ways to cash that under. Yep. And hoping, maybe this negative correlation thing will be part of our brand here, Josh, because Hawks in a blowout spot here, blowout win spot, and I will take Trae Young under 32.5 points with Atlanta at an adjusted spread if you want. I mean, you can go -8 and get 2-1 on your money, or you can just take the normal spread right now, which is -11. I mean, Detroit is so bad. 23 straight losses. Their last 6 on the road here have been by an average of 26 a game. They have only covered once in their last 11 overall, and that was when the Knicks were on a back-to-back. Hawks are in normal rest here. And so the scenario is that the Hawks just run away with this, and Trey doesn't play much in the fourth quarter, and he doesn't shoot a ton in general because he doesn't need to. And that exact scenario played out the last 2 times they hosted the Pistons, double-digit wins. Trey averaged 28 in 31 minutes, got his numbers, 12 and a half assists, happy to do it. His last, they've won by 19 a game, their last 4 against this Pistons team. Trey went over in both road games, under in both home games. Sort of a correlation we see this year, 26 a game at home versus nearly 30 on the road. Usage rate 33.7% on the road. So he's, if Atlanta gets into a tougher spot where they're struggling to find points and manufacture offense, he's going to get in there and toss up that floater and take long threes, etc. And, those splits are the same despite this strength of schedule at home recently, which I'd say they've played like 7 straight playoff quality opponents at home. The last easy one was against Washington. They won by 9, and Trey got 23 and 10 and played 35 minutes. So not even like the huge blowout factor. But, this is a kind of a sleepier spot where he doesn't need to blow up. Their next 2 are at Houston, at Miami. If you want to look ahead and think about like, oh man, I'm going to have to be on point for us to score on those teams on the road. So, I mean, hopefully we see Bogey and Hunter are playing because you want a little bit more balance from the scoring for Atlanta, for Trey not to just take over. But either way, 32 and a half is a lot in this spot.
It's a lot. There's some massively high totals for some player props. And I mean, the games are just getting a little bananas for sure with the overs, and it's teams like Atlanta. So like, but either way, the over doesn't necessarily have to directly correlate to Trey just dominating this team. He's played a lot of minutes, like you said. There's stuff to look ahead to as well. I don't see the point in like grinding him into the ground. This would be this would be nasty for Quinn Snyder and the team if they are not able to handle business against this Pistons team, and they're the first team that the Pistons look like they actually have life against. That's bad news. I think this has got to be like a really big, like, we need to show that we can blow them out the way that everybody else, literally everybody else, has been blowing this team out. Even the Grizzlies beat them by double digits on their floor. So, like, yeah, I think that Trey's going to come at least like early on, and DeJounte is also a really good bet for 21 and a half points, which should eat into that for Trey. So, let's go ahead and take another crazy under. 55 and a half points, rebounds, and assists for Luka Doncic. Not for the faint of heart. I just got to roll with it. I actually feel better about it, Nate, than I do the under 239 or 238 and a half actually for the total of this game, because Alice, as we know, the Alice Mavericks ain't playing no D, man. And it just works so well for them, better than anyone, because it's Alice, right? So anyway, for them in this game, like, I agree that there will be points. That's what scares me. Like, I do think that a 240 total is reasonable. But the PRA with the rebounds, first of all, the points are at 35 and a half. And like, I mean, God, what are we doing here? Like, it's Luka. It's going to be Luka without Kyrie. The usage is going to be there, but the points don't actually go up this season in the 8 games that Kyrie has not played. Dude averages 32 and a half points with or without Kyrie. Kyrie is just he's a better Tim Hardaway Jr., like, to Luka. Like, it's just another dude standing to Luka. For the purpose of this Mavs offense, that is a better spot-up shooter. And honestly, Tim Hardaway is probably a better spot-up shooter, but Kyrie's better literally everywhere else on offense. But more importantly, like, that's what he means, is just another spot-up shooter who can drive if you give him space. But, right, like, Luka's not even getting those assists to Kyrie when Kyrie goes off. Like, he's actually got a few more assists per game without Kyrie. He's still averaging below the 56 he would need without Kyrie in those 8 games that he's played without him this season. But it's the Nuggets at home. Like, I got to believe in the defending champs to at least be able to slow down the one thing that the other team wants to do in their own building, especially. So that's why Luka has only hit this once, and it was in 2021. It was a completely different context than the one that we're going to be facing here on Monday night. And in the last 4, gone under. He did have 56 in the first matchup of last season. Like I said, that's the first time that they played. But Jokic wasn't in that game, and he had 17 rebound chances, and he had 12 boards, and he had 15 assists. And so, believe it or not, Jokic is a pretty good defender down low. He's gone from bad to average to slightly above average in terms of his ability to limit opponents down low when they come into the painted area against him. He's also obviously going to continue to gobble up rebounds, although Michael Porter Jr. and Aaron Gordon are severely eating into his rebounds when they play lately, that's fine. Like the fact is that they have one of the best defensive rebounding teams in the league. They also have one of a better offensive rebounding teams. It's one of the better rebounding teams in the league, obviously, and at home as well, where they limit opponents to the fewer rebounds, fewer assists. So like just defense at home for the defending champs who have some pride. They're going to be locked in on Luka. I got to go under 55.5 PRA with a half unit.
No, I support how bold this is. I'm probably scared off because for a second I thought about the Wolves, the Wolves shutting down Luka and Jaden McDaniels being out there, and he had 40 in 29 minutes or something. He will not be contained if he needs to. Kyrie being out, it makes me nervous. Like you could just get these insane lines from Luka all over the place. Denver is maybe the team to do it, but the only thing I have to correct is Tim Hardaway Jr. actually leads the NBA in turnover percentage. I just looked up, wanted to see some advanced stats. He is not, I mean, you did say as a spot up shooter, but Kyrie is 20th in offensive like win shares. Like Kyrie is he's having a very efficient season. Hasn't said or done anything completely bonkers. So let's just back off on the Kyrie slander. He's a fantastic offensive player.
Can I be more clear? There
will be missed.
I need to be very clear for I never got to use this line before, but for anybody who wants to aggregate what I said, which would be awesome, feel free. But what I said was to Luka Doncic in his computer brain, Kyrie Irving equals good shooter, which is what Tim Hardaway Jr. equals to him. So the only thing that these wing players equal to Luka is, are you open after I beat somebody off the dribble or get into the lane and get space, right? And like that's what I mean is that the importance of Kyrie to Luka is just another shooter, but not necessarily like somebody who's going to impact what Luka does on the court, right? He's going to do Luka with whomever he plays with. He is a system. So anyway, no offense to you, Kyrie. Keep balling. That is all the time we have. No offense to you either, THJ, but stop turning the ball over. That's all the time we have for you in this one. Continue to follow along. Check out the play of props that we have up for you as well. And until we see you next, happy betting.